Alright, this demo uses ArcGIS Pro 3.3, and one of the first things you'll notice when you start it is you don't get a blank screen like in ArcMap. You kind of get this splash screen, and so right out of the box you can pick recent projects, you can open a new project, so that's what we're going to do. And you'll notice right now there is a default project location, and so I will show you how to change that in a little bit. But for today's projects, or demo, we're going to be working in this BWSR Academy 102924 folder, and it's going to ask you if you want to create basically a subfolder within this projects folder, and I would recommend doing that. You certainly don't have to if you get used to working in one folder and want to just create a bunch of projects. So we will open that up, and you'll notice there it is, BWSR Academy 102924. Created that new folder. It's going to actually create a file geodatabase within that folder, so it's kind of like your working geodatabase. And ArcPro files have this .aprx extension at the end versus MXD for the ArcMap projects. Okay, so here's what happens when you open ArcPro. It's going to zoom out to the world. But yeah, so you'll notice immediately, if you haven't already, that we have all these different panes. And within each of these panes, it's kind of like Microsoft Office, where you have all kinds of different buttons and tools and options. You even have the ability to create your own tab. And then up here, you have your quick access toolbar. So for folks migrating over from ArcMap, this is kind of like a security blanket where you can lock things in up there, just like in ArcMap you had all your toolbars that you could turn on and just leave on. So no matter what project you had, these were always here. And so that's kind of captured in this quick access toolbar where you can for example, maybe you want this reset panes button, so no matter what's going on, you get lost, something happens, you can always go and you can go to this. Well, it's under view is where it is, but you can again pin it and have it up here, reset pane. So that gives you your contents, that gives you your catalog. Those are your kind of your starting points for ArcPro. One thing that I really needed to have is a rectangle zoom in, and so you can customize this quick access toolbar. You can pick from popular commands, so add data was one I think I added, but you don't necessarily have to have that. But you can go to all commands, search for quick access for rectangle zoom. You do rectangle zoom in, then add that just by clicking the add arrow. So again, if there's certain tools that you absolutely have to have, for me that is one of them, then you can put them on the quick access toolbar. You could also make a new tab if you want to do it that way. So to get to this options, and before I do that, the other thing you can do is if there's something here, you can right click and add to quick access toolbar. Like if select by location is something important to you, you can do that as well. So before we get into adding data and working with data, let's go to options. So you saw here the bottom was this quick access toolbar. Other settings. So your current settings is going to tell you your name of your project, where it's at, your default geodatabase. You can change your units. This is the spot to do that. One thing people really like to do is work with a dark theme. So this would be essentially your screen would be black. You've probably seen folks do this even with Microsoft Word. That is under Application General and then Dark. And then you're going to actually have to restart the application for that to happen. I don't like the dark theme, so I'm going to keep it the same. Map and themes, you can change the label engine. This is where you can have a certain coordinate system to be default. And I'll show you in a little bit how you can set favorites. But if you don't have, yeah, we'll look at that in a second. Selection options, you can change the color. There's different spots to do that as well. Editing, this might be one to think about if you do a lot of edits. You can have it save edits when saving the project. You can also have it automatically save your edits. So this might be a cool one every 10 minutes, for example, if you're doing a lot of editing, to have it save your edits. And there's a ton of other options too that you can get into. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can set your text and graphics to, if you want a certain font size or a certain font type, you can do that as well. And I think I missed one thing where when you're creating projects, yeah, so this is where we had new projects are saved into custom locations. So this is, again, where you can set that. You can actually set this up so it doesn't even show that start page. You can just go right to a project, and that's how you do that under Application General. So yeah, before you get too far into Pro, I would definitely consider just setting up your environment a little bit. Okay, so again, your default view here is your panes is you have contents over here, and over here is your catalog. You're going to see these over and over: project, portal, computer, and favorites. These four. So if you go to add data, it's going to be the same layout: project, portal, computer, and favorites. So keep those in mind. Project is anything within this project that we just made when we started up. It's going to have your geodatabase, your default geodatabase. And the cool thing is, if there is data or folders that you work in for this particular project, you can add them and they'll stay with this project. You can add them and they'll stay for new projects. So let's add some data. To do this, we'll go to our computer, and hopefully you have data locally. Again, this is not a tutorial. This is just a demo of the software, so feel free to reference back to the video. But let's say we have a parcels. We're going to be doing a lot of work with a parcels geodatabase. So we can add it. If you right click, you can add it to your favorites. You can add it to all new projects, but for sure we're going to add it to this project. So now if we go to project, databases, there it is. And we're going to add CAS parcels August 2024 to our current map. You could also made it a favorite, and then it's over here in the favorites. Anything, you can do a lot of different things with favorites. It could be folders, could be tools, could be WMS service locations. Computers, just kind of everything on your network or your PC where you want to navigate, and you can create shortcuts to those as well. Portal is all your online content. Not only your content, it's default to my content, but anything ArcGIS Online, if you're part of a group or your organization, you can see content, or you can see anything from ArcGIS Online anywhere that anybody's shared publicly, as well as ESRI's Living Atlas. So this works really well with Pro. It's a lot smoother than ArcMap. So if you want to add stuff from your content, this is one thing that I learned as I went along, is make sure you tag your data, tag it well. Otherwise you start accumulating stuff and you just lose track. So even when I type in rack, because I do a lot of rack scoring, which if you're in the session previously learned a little bit about, we'll talk a little bit more about it. Still a struggle for me, but you're looking for the yellow with the kind of the red on it. That icon, that is a feature layer, and that is a layer that you can just add to your map right from the cloud. You could also add maps too, which have obviously more than just one layer. Alright, but this feature layer, here's what it's got in it. It's got the rack scores, some minor watersheds, sub-watersheds. This is a part of our Cass County area here. Alright, so that's kind of just the real basics on working with your data and figuring out where that is at. Again, like I said, you can add folders to your. So we have this GIS data. We could add that. Let's say we want to add CAS. We can add this to our project. And now we have a folder. Okay, locators is like for doing address locating, geocoding. Toolboxes, like I say, you can, it creates a default toolbox. You can add other toolboxes. If you want to find your normal tools, that is under geoprocessing. Toolboxes, so again, this is kind of the ArcGIS toolbox. It's under geoprocessing. A lot of tools here to sort through. They're kind of organized similarly. If you knew where they were in ArcMap, you can generally find them, but a lot of times it's easier just to search and find the tool that you want as well. And then it will put them, as you're using them, you can make them your favorite, but there'll be recent tools as well as you get into this. So that's where your toolbox is. Okay, let's talk a little bit about over here on the left side. We have our contents pane. Just like ArcMap, you can list by data source, by selection, editability, snapping. So this is a new one, snapping. So this, you can show which layers you want to be able to snap to. That was always a little bit of a hassle in ArcMap, and labeling as well, which I believe is new. So let's talk a little bit about the symbology. That's one that can cause some stress a little bit. Actually, before we do that, let's go to properties. So you can play around with these properties. Some are similar to what was in ArcMap. One thing I want to say, who here has used a definition query? This is the greatest thing ever. I mean, it was in ArcMap and now it's in Pro. It's even better in Pro because you can actually make a query and create another one. How awesome is that? And save them. So, just for those that don't know, definition query allows you to basically define your data, just the data that you want to see. It's kind of like selecting and then making a new layer, but in this case, you're not touching you don't have the clutter of having all these layers. So you just are basically defining what it is you want to see. So in this case, we have, let's say we want to see, let's say we want to do some outreach for some forestry. ArcGIS or AcresGIS is greater than 20. We're going to add another clause to it. We want to just find private lands. So there's this ownership from Cass County, so we could do that. We could look to see, okay, which of these ownership fields do we want by saying ownership includes the values. If you just did equal to, then you just got to pick one. So I like to do includes the values. So let's say we want private and maybe church property. There's a lot of church camps. Okay, so again, we can save that, we can load it, we can remove it. That is the active query. So what happens if we hit OK? So again, this just defined the data down from a big, 50,000 plus parcels down to those that have 20 acres or more and are private. And if we, all right. Okay. Let's say we want to symbolize this. A lot of different options. ArcPro, you can customize and do so many things. It's crazy. It gives you a few different symbol types, I guess. Not that you necessarily need to change it here for parcels, but that is there. The symbol itself, you're going to have some pre-built ones here in the gallery that you may want to play with. But if you go to properties, here's where you can change the color or go no color. You can mess around with the outline. Outline width. All kinds of different things you can play around with that we're not going to get into today. But one thing I did want to show you is let's say you want to do unique values. So these are going to be based on a field in your attribute field. So let's say we have this public type field which sorts out the different the different kinds of lands that we have. And these were kind of the ones that were grouped into that private and church camp categories. Let's say we let's go back actually to our ownership type from Cass County. Let's say we want to separate out the church property and camps from private. First off, if you want to look at these together, you can hit shift and either group values or you can format the symbol. So let's say we want to change the outline to red. It's going to change it for both. Let's say we don't want all of their values because there just isn't any and we don't want that in our legend. You can go to more, turn off, show all other values. Right, let's say, I don't know that I can handle red. Okay, so now you can kind of see where the church properties are at and where the rest of the private is at. Let's do this. Let's turn off our definition query. Or actually, let's just make it not active. So again, it's there. But now we're going to have to add all of our values back. That was just a demonstration. You can decide which ones to add back, or you can add, I think there's an options to add all values. We'll just do it that way. Okay, so we got all the data back. So it's kind of sorted by that ownership type. Let's say we want to change the symbology to be something different. I mean, it's going to be like ArcMap where you have different pre-built options. But if you do show all, your world of colors is just going to explode. You have all kinds of color ramps that you do not have in ArcMap. I'm going to check the box to show names. And the reason for that, so let's say I go back to my catalog pane, and don't worry, Symbology is still there, just down at the bottom. And one thing you notice too, I think as I was clicking along here, you make changes and you don't have to click OK all the time. Like that's the one thing in ArcMap that drove me crazy, was that you had to click OK so many times. With this auto apply button on, it just makes the change on the fly for you. So how cool is that? Okay, so back to catalog. One thing we didn't talk about was this: in your project, you have styles. One thing that's built in that's very cool is all the color brewer styles. So there was this website before, this color brewer website that folks would go to get color schemes that um, you could kind of make your own color scheme, and yeah, it was pretty cool. All these different ways to symbolize data. Well, those are built into ArcPro. And the cool thing with color brewer styles is, let's say we open them. So these are some of the ones that you're seeing in there. There's 292 color ramps built in. A lot of them are colorblind safe. So many of you have probably seen this document that Minnesota has on accessibility for mapping. This map design guide and what they recommend for different like Minnesota brand colors or colorblind safe. So if that's of interest to you, just type in colorblind safe, for example, and the 292 that we had is going to drop down to 208. And then again, by having the names turned on in your symbology, you can say, okay, well, stoplight colors is not one that's colorblind safe, but maybe there's some similar ones, the orange to purple or the red to blue to yellow. Yeah, those you can then work with in your project and pick those out that you want to use. So maybe it was yellow to green continuous. There you go. Maybe not the greatest for this particular data set, but nonetheless. But you can, again, format the symbols, remove the outline, and it's going to change on the fly. You can actually see your data a lot better. So there you go. So let's do one other cool thing I really like to do in ArcPro. That's a handy tool in geoprocessing. Actually, it's in analysis, but it's a geoprocessing tool. It's called Summarize Within. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign a watershed to each of these parcels. We'll actually go back to our definition query and just get our private parcels out again. And give you a better color here that we can use. There we go. We need a watershed layer first. So for those that don't have quick layers, I don't think I'm going to have time to do a demo on how to install it during our session today. But basically what it is a way to access all the data on GeoCommons, Minnesota GeoCommons that you want, and kind of have it in the background on your PC or on your server. And then when somebody updates the data, it will update. You have to click a button, but it'll update on your computer as well. And it also keeps the same symbology that the author intended for it to have. So you can see when you bring it in, it's got the DNR Watershed Suite, just like it is if you download it from the Commons. So you don't have to download it, unzip it, it's all right there in a nice package. It's not great to find stuff, but this find button will work. But yeah, it's kind of set up on this GDRS manager in the background is kind of the brains behind the operation. So you would type in your URL for where the data is stored. In this case, it's this resources.gisdata.mn.gov. You would create this GDRS on your computer. And this is going to show you everything in your PC. Everything in gray is on your computer. Everything in blue has an update. So you could run update and theoretically it would turn the blue to gray and you'd have the most current data without having to go and re-download and unzip and delete out the old file. And if you want new things, let's say you want karst features, you can click it over before you run the update. So this is where DNR has a bunch of tools as well, including this quick layers toolbar. So you need to make sure you grab all the DNR applications. A few things that they're still working on that only work in ArcMap and aren't fully migrated over to Pro. So yeah, don't give up on ArcMap totally if you are using some of those tools. But nonetheless, all right, here we go. We have, I'm going to go ahead and reset my panes. Okay, we have watersheds. Labeling might look a little different. It's really not that much different. Just different programming language, really. You can change, and I like the halo a lot when I do labels. It just adds a little bit of a white behind the lettering. And again, auto apply is a lifesaver. So yeah, that'll take effect. Oops, forgot to turn that on. Alright, there's our watershed names. We have our private parcels. So you could do a few different things. You could do intersect or clip or union rather, but what I want to do is there's these parcels that are on the edge of the watershed and I want to assign to them which watershed. I don't want to cut them in half. So like this big parcel here, I want to assign it one of these watersheds or the other. And I'm going to probably do that based on the majority of the area that's within that. So if you haven't used Summarize Within, there's different toolbars you could get for ArcMap, but they're kind of cumbersome. So it's really handy that it's built into Pro. So we're going to grab our polygons that we're using, and it's just the ones that we have defined. That's why it says use filtered records as the default. And we're going to summarize by our watersheds, our major watersheds, and it's going to create a separate shapefile for us to do this. Again, it's right now it's in our project, our database. It's going to put it in this BWSR Academy. It's kind of our default database. So we're going to cast parcels by watershed. Actually, we'll call it private parcels by watershed. The key field here is the group field. The rest aren't really that important. You want to pick the major name is what we're sorting it by. And we're going to do minority and majority attributes, 80%. It's going to ask for a table. That's fine. We'll run. So it's going to take those 8,294 parcels and basically just add a few attributes onto the end related to our summarized field, which is our major watershed. So we'll see how long this takes to complete. Alright, there we go. Turn off the other one. Here is our new one. Zoom to that layer like you could in the past. Open attribute table. And you'll see at the end it's got the majority major watershed name, the minority. So in this case, it's got Leech Lake River, Pine River for 5%. So that would be one. That would be on the line if we move the watershed layer up above. Yeah, you'll see it's mostly in Leech Lake, a little bit in the Pine. So theoretically, we could symbolize by that new field, majority major name. Alright, so again, it's going to symbolize by the majority watershed that you're in. Okay, so where I was going with all this is we were going to, let's say, do a mailing just for the Crowing River. So again, we could go back to our definition query. I do want to mention if you need to add fields, you open the attribute table, pretty simple, add a field. It's going to put it at the bottom. You need, whether it's a number or a short integer, long integer, none of this has really changed. You need to hit save up here. And you could just rename that field, or you could calculate it based on watershed equals. We're just going to do the majority major name, hit OK. Maybe that's just the one we really care about. We don't really need to know major or minor, or majority or minority. Regardless, back to definition query. We're going to go watershed equals Crowing River. Now we just have the Crowing River ones. And if we wanted to, we could do a join over here. We could join based on parcel number, because this is a fresh set of parcels. Where I was going with this is that rack scoring data from before. That's a number of years old. We can join based on a parcel ID, and then we could field calculate we'd have new names and addresses, but then we could field calculate and create our rack scoring information. I already did that for you in the interest of time. So let's say we're going to add to that query where your rack scores are greater than, you could do includes the values and pick the ones you want, or you could do greater than or equal to. Okay, so just to follow this, we started with all of Cass County parcels, and then we just picked the 20 acres. We assigned it a watershed and defined on that watershed. And now we have just the greater than 20 acres with those rack scores. We can open Excel. Now we're going to just copy these. So you could select them physically, or you could select them from the table. One thing that I want to point out is there is no select all that I've found. So you just, with nothing selected, if you want them all selected, hit switch and it'll grab them all. Hit copy and paste, and then you can work with your data if you want to do a mail merge or something from Excel. So I think with that, we've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Let's do one thing here. Since we are migrating over from ArcMap to ArcPro, we're going to insert a map, so an MXD file from that we have an ArcMap, and you'll see that it's pretty seamless how it comes over. So we have an MXD that's called LSP parcel status. Okay, you'll see it added a layout. Our original map is still there. Now you're like, well, how do I work with this? Well, again, go to reset panes in your project. There is another map there. So stuff gets closed out or you can't find stuff, it's there. So we have two maps, and then a layout. And that's the beauty of pros. You can have multiple maps in one project. It may not help your life, it may be a little bit more confusing. We're not going to get too much into the making layouts, and legends can be a little bit confusing. But I'd say the biggest thing for legends is just know what it is that you're working on. So when you go to legend properties, are you working with the legend, the background, border? You click on a specific layer. Are you working with the layer name, the heading? All this will help you understand what things are showing up in your legend, and then you can drag things up or down in here if you want. I would definitely say if you don't want to be in here copying layouts. So if you have a layout that you want to make as a template, save as a layout file, and then you can insert that as a layout file, or there's actually a bunch of there's pre-made templates as well. But that's one thing I learned the hard way is don't copy a layout and then try to go back and edit the map. You're gonna have one map controlling two layouts, and it's just going to be frustrating. So definitely try to keep your maps separate, so you have one map for each layout. Just a hint there. Okay, one other thing I wanted to do. So let's add data. Again, from our project, we have a folder called CAS that we set up already. There's some address point data or driveways. So let's say we want to make a heat map from this. You'll notice anytime you're working with data, it's going to give you a few other options here. So feature layer is one. You can go under Symbology, make a real quick and dirty heat map. And there's all kinds of custom. I typically go with dynamic, so it changes as you zoom in. You can weight different fields, but that's a really handy thing right in Symbology. So let's say, okay, we do want to make a pretty map. One thing under map that you can do is add a graphics layer. And this graphics layer, let's see, you just want to do a call out for this blob here in Hackensack, town of Hackensack. You can certainly do all kinds of different things with the font and that sort of thing. But if you go to properties, again, you can play around with halos, but you can do a call out. A balloon call out is what you want. Change your types of balloons. Change your dart style. Change the balloon symbol. You can do a different color. And you're noticing, okay, great, how do I get this leader line to show up? Well, that you need to right click and add leader. And you'll get that to show. All right, so I think I've covered everything I want to cover. Now we're going to transition over to Jarrett, who's going to talk to you about sharing data and working with data online in your ArcGIS account. So now would be a time, if you had ArcGIS online, to maybe log in. And Jarrett's going to show you some really cool stuff on how to use Pro and to make a simple dashboard.